We are live. Welcome everyone to today's episode of PEPTalk, Productive Environment Podcast. I'm Andrea Anderson in Carolina Beach, North Carolina.
And I'm Barbara Hemphill in Raleigh, North Carolina.
And we are so excited to talk to you today about one of our absolute favorite topics. And as you can see on the screen, our topic today, our title is Get Organized Together, the impact of quiet co-working. We'll tell you what that is in a few minutes, and accountability on Zoom. So Barbara, I will let you take it away.
So 46 years ago, when I started my company, I named it Barbara Hemphill Associates, even though I had no idea who the associates were going to be. But I knew for sure that doing it alone was not going to be anything that was going to work for me. I'm a people person, a together person. It turned out that the first person in my team was actually my hairdresser. Because the way I got speeches was by the way I got clients was by giving speeches. And I just wasn't comfortable giving a speech if my hair didn't look good. And I had this gentleman that was my hairdresser, and he was very, very popular. And so I would book him. I would go and get my hair cut, and I would book the next one. And it was 4 weeks, and I did not change. I mean, that was in there. So he was my first one. The second one was a bookkeeper, because I went to George Mason University. I signed up for an accounting class. I lasted 2 days. So if I have to do this, there is no hope for me having a business. But I also knew I have dyslexia. I don't like numbers. I knew that managing. So I hired a bookkeeper literally before I had any income whatsoever.
Yeah, that's a good tip there. That's a good tip. So you named your company Hemphill and Associates.
It was Barbara Hemphill Associates originally. That was the very first name. And that came as a suggestion. Again, talking about, learning from other people. I would only be here because of what I've learned. My very first client, actually, in Washington, not the first client in New York, but I moved to Washington. My first client in Washington, she's passed away now. Her name was Jean Wiener Bell, and she had a PR company. And she was the one who said that if I named it after myself, it would make marketing easier, because every time I introduced myself, I would actually be saying the name of my company. So to start, I named it Barbara Hemphill Associates. Mm-hmm. Then as I grew and I've reinvented, I've had, I think, 7 different names in 46 years, variations of the names. But all of the names had to do with together we are better. And so today we're talking about getting organized together. So
that's right, getting organized together. And so what does that mean? Well, first of all, before we go into that, Barbara, you coined the phrase "together we are better," I believe. And you want to tell about that, where that came about? Because that truly is what we do.
Well, that came from when I was president of NAPO in the 1990s. I don't even remember what year it was anymore. And I was president. And as a president, you were to come up with a theme. And because we were so new in the industry at that point, most people were very scarcity minded. In fact, I remember Julie Morgenstern will tell the story. She's one of the top organizers in the world these days. And she has told the story that she called me about starting an organizing business, and I encouraged her. I said, yes. And she said, she called a bunch of people, and I was the only one that encouraged her, because the others were afraid of the competition. And that's what let me know that this is about together we are better. It's not about getting a bigger piece of the pie. It's about making the pie bigger. And that is more true today than ever before, because the need for organization, productivity, getting rid of clutter is so critical, because our society has gotten so clutter overwhelmed. We're constantly multitasking. Our children, our grandchildren don't want all of our clutter. Life has gotten more complicated. And it's like, so what we do now is more necessary than ever before. So that also means that the opportunity to have a career in this field is huge.
Right. Right. I'm glad you said that. So, guys, stay tuned. In July, Barbara and I are going to be doing a series about the opportunity as to be a productivity consultant and what that looks like. We're going to interview a few people. So I'm gonna mum's the word on that for now, but I'm just putting the bug in your ear. So yeah, together we are better. And how that applies in Productive Environment Institute and in organizing with our clients. So here's what I saw happen, and it actually happened to me as well. And I think, Barbara, you have a story about this too. But what happens when we're trying to declutter and get organized, it is an overwhelming project. It is an overwhelming task. And we can learn systems and we can learn the processes and we can learn, what to do and how to do it and stop the problem. I think we talked about that on the last podcast, how to stop the problem. But then the continued maintenance and dealing with the backlog. So that is our last podcast. Dealing with the backlog of things is very overwhelming. And it's just, we look at this massive amount of paper or boxes or whatever it is you're dealing with, those of you guys that are watching, and you just turn around and be like, I can't do it.
Your to-do list.
Yeah, same thing.
Look at your to-do list.
Yeah, I can't do it. It's too much. Let me go take a nap. Let me go turn on a movie. Let me go do anything but that to-do list or anything but that organizing project. And so, in fact, before I go into how we do it with our clients now, I'll even tell you, it happened to me when I was moving. My ex-husband and I were moving from our house to a condo. And it was just, we had completely different styles of how to do that, of how to make that process. So I'm more of one thing at a time, one room at a time, bring out, make a decision. I mean, what you teach, Barbara, do we want to file, keep this for future? Do I need to do something with this, or can I toss it? And toss meant either trash or donate, right? So I had this system in my head, but apparently I didn't move fast enough. So my ex-husband decided that he would just empty out all the rooms and our attic into the dining room. Like, he literally brought everything in the house and put it in the dining room. And I said at the time, it feels like the attic threw up in the dining room. That's what it felt like to me. And I think that was some of you love Marie Kondo and that whole process. Like, I could not relate. I had an aversion to that, bringing everything into the middle of the room and bring it up. Oh, it was horrible. And I remember I was lamenting about it to, maybe it was in my networking group or something. I was really stressed about it. And a local organizer, there weren't many local organizers at that time. But there was one here, and she heard me talking about it. And she was like, Andrea, would you like me to come over and help you? And I was like, oh no, I work with Barbara. I'm an organizer. I should be able to do this myself. She was like, sometimes just having someone else there to be there with you can be helpful. I know you know what to do, but maybe just having me there. She was so sweet. And I said, okay. And she came over and she truly just lowered my blood pressure, calmed my nerves, and started asking me very gentle questions. And then I got going and we got through it. And it was such a blessing to me. That happened that time. And then it happened again, Barbara, later on. I don't even know if you remember this, but it was another transition when I had moved to Carolina Beach, and you said, do you want me to come? Do you want me to come help you and do it? You don't remember it. Yeah. So there was two big transitions in my life. And you said, do you need your own 8-hour miracle or office transformation? I was like, yes. And so just having that person there, and we've done this for our clients, but I want you all to hear that it happens to us too. And didn't that just recently happen with you?
Yes,
Barbara?
it happened with my books. Okay. So my bookshelves were getting full and I needed to go through them, and I started to do it myself, and I just couldn't do it. And I just called a friend. In this case, she's not an organizing consultant, but she is an organized person, although she wouldn't really had to be. I just said, I just need you to come here and sit with me and let me talk through. And that's what I did. And the interesting thing that happens out of that, and this is, I think, another side effect of Together We're Better, is what would have been a horrific experience by myself, lots of angst and confusion and frustration. It wasn't easy, but it was so much more pleasant because she was supportive and she would listen to me, and it makes a huge. And I remember one of my very first clients. I think I may have talked about him on the podcast. He was an astrophysicist, and we were cleaning boxes of his files out of his garage. And at one point he was laughing, and then he stopped and he looked at me and he said, if anybody would have ever told me that I'd be laughing cleaning out my garage, I wouldn't have believed it, because it's just easier.
Yeah. I mean, Kathy Music, New Path Productivity, just the presence of someone else is both calming and motivating. I just feel less alone. Exactly.
And that also brings up one of the other principles we talk about a lot, which is asking for help is a sign of wisdom, not weakness. We are so conditioned. Oh, I can do this myself. I don't need help, kind of thing. That's kind of, I mean, I grew up on a farm, and that's kind of, except when the barn burned down, everybody come to build at the farm, but just on the day-to-day kinds of tasks. And we shoot ourselves in the foot because it's a whole lot easier if we get somebody else.
Yeah. And another example of a physical, we're going to talk about virtual in a minute, but physical, having someone there. I recently worked with a client, and she had a lot of boxes, and she had a team of people that could have physically helped her. And so I swoop in with a cape as the expert. I come in with my little Supergirl cape, and my partner went and did this big job, and got things situated. And the people that work for her were like, well, I could have done that. We could have done that. But the difference is, here's the difference. It wasn't just the physical movement. If it was just about physical moving the boxes from here to there, they absolutely could have done that. But where it gets complicated, you guys, is when it comes to those daggone decisions.
And it's emotion. Okay. And so decisions are difficult because of the emotions. That was exactly the way it was with the books. I mean, I had emotions about those books, and that was what you had to deal with.
That's exactly right. So having someone there that can guide and help you, ask questions and guide, never tell you what to do, because then your defenses come up. Oh, you don't need this. Oh, you should throw this away. Oh, no. You dig your heels in. It's like, no, don't tell me that.
But sometimes, and we've talked about this before, people do want permission to do it. And a great way for that to happen is to say, if it were mine, this is what I would do. And then because there's a no-like trust there, then they can do it. So, Andrea, you are totally responsible for the fact now that we do 80 to 90% of our work virtually. And you drug me into that, because I had never done anything like that. I'm a love of people person. I'm a very tactile person. And I mean, I like physically organizing things. I mean, makes me feel better and gives me a sense. So when you talked about your client that you had, I think in Arizona, that you had never met, and you were doing what we then called an 8-hour miracle virtually, it's like, no, I just can't imagine.
Yeah.
But we have now found out that, and we were one of the first in the country to do it.
Yeah.
And that it was such a blessing, especially when COVID came along. It was a huge blessing because we were already comfortable.
We were already doing it.
Yeah. But now we've learned, we didn't do it in the beginning, but we've learned to apply the co-working and collaboration. Together we are better to virtual, which is the best of all worlds for everybody. It means we can offer our services less expensively, because you don't have to pay for travel. And we can also do it in smaller blocks of time, which is huge, because people's number one objection is it. And so then that brings us up to co-working, and you were responsible for putting co-working into our program. So describe how it works.
How that works. But let me back up a little minute to, I've got to give credit to Kathy Powell, who was in she's passed away now, sadly. But she was in your program before I was.
She was
one
one
of
of
the
the
first.
first
Yeah.
consultants that was trained in 1998.
Right. So as soon as I got trained by I went physically for a week and learned how to do all this. As soon as I got trained, I said, okay, now I know how to do this amazing service with the 8-hour miracle, decluttering and organizing. I said, but how do I get clients? And so I ended up, PEI, it was Paper Tiger Productivity Institute at the time. There was no program for how to market and get a client. So I turned to Kathy Powell, who had walked before me. And I said, Kathy, how do I get clients? And so she started coaching me. And then she said, she goes, because we were talking about opportunities in my city, in my town. And she said, you can do this virtually, right? And I was like, what? How is that even possible? And she was like, it is possible. And at that moment, I couldn't wrap my head around it. I said, give me some time to think this through and whatever. And I came back to her and I said, okay, I think I'm ready. So I started, she's the one that referred that first client to me. It was in New Mexico.
I had forgotten about that. I mean,
Yeah,
Kathy and I were
it
dear
came from Kathy.
but I'd completely forgotten about it. So.
Yeah. And so I'm talking to this woman on the phone. So this was 2000. I think I got trained I did get trained in 2005. So I think this was 2006. And there was no Zoom. There was Skype, but I was terrified of it. I had never really used it at that point yet. And so I was just on the phone with this woman. And I said, and I had your training, and I had everything printed out, just here's what you do, like as if I were in the office with her. Here's what you say. Here's what you take with you. Here's what you do. And I was just reading it as I'm on the actual phone with her. And I said, okay, well, tell me about this. And we talked. And then, and she said, well, how does this work? How do you help me? And I was like, well, because Kathy had told me I could do this virtually. I told this woman, and she said, okay, well, how much is it? And I was like, I said $1,200 at the time. It's more than that now. But anyway, at the time it was $1,200. And I just was like, it's $1,200. And then I was just quiet. And she was like, well, how do I pay you? Like, how do you take payment? And I was like, PayPal, and so that was the first time. And that experience was a wonderful experience. It worked. I worked with that woman for months. We continued to work together and I charged, after that 1,200, I went to an hourly rate, which we normally don't do and we don't teach. But she wanted to keep going at an hourly rate, and it was a pretty high rate. And she made a comment about it one time. And I said, well, you could get somebody local to come in and help you. And she's like, oh, no. She's like, I don't want anybody in my office. She said, this is fine. So she was willing to pay that premium. Anyway, that led to so many more virtual clients, and then being able to teach our organizing consultants to our certified productive environment specialists that they can do it virtually as well. So as Barbara, you just said, well before COVID happened, we were very comfortable working virtually. That just accelerated even more. So with that said, most of our virtual services were one-on-one, like it was me and the client, or our consultant and the client. And you started doing it too, Barbara, you and the client. So, but then what happened? Once the service was finished, we were out, we were done, and then they were left on their own. And so then they got lonely, and they didn't have the ongoing.
They procrastinated.
Procrastination set in. The camaraderie was gone. And it's like, how do you sustain your success? In Barbara's 5-step productive environment process, number 5 is sustain your success. And that wasn't happening. And so I believe it was around 2017, 18, where we started a group program called the Office Transformation Program at the time. It's a little bit different now, and I had this idea. I said, we're going to do a group. So if somebody gets one-on-one coaching with us and we help them set up the system in their office, then we want to put them into a group where they can come and actually do the work, implement. Because guess what, guys? It isn't just doing it one time. It's just like brushing your teeth. You don't just brush your teeth one time. We got to keep doing it. Same thing with the organization. So we wanted to create an environment where they could come on a regular schedule and meet up with other people who were doing the same thing and do the work.
I just never thought of it until just this minute. You said to create an environment. I thought, oh, So our co-working is a productive environment. I never even thought of that before.
That's exactly what it is. Yeah, because what happens when you have the system, and the system that you learn that we teach stops the problem, but then it needs maintenance. And so coming together and doing that drudgery of filing, and it's like coming together knowing you have a set aside time to do it, and there will be other people there. So for a long time, several years actually, we might have one person show up to that group. And there were times that I thought, like, why are we doing this? Should I just cancel it and not have it anymore? But something told me, keep going, keep going. Well, I know who told me. God told me to keep going, keep going, keep going. And now, because of our boot camps, we have a digital transformation boot camp where we deal with email and electronic information, and an office transformation boot camp where we deal with paper and physical information. Those students, our boot campers, now they upgrade to a program we have called SOAR, which means systemize, organize, activate, which is taking action so you can relate, which means doing the thing that you do, whatever that is in your business or your life. And so now they go through our boot camp and then come into SOAR. And then on a regular schedule, we meet, we answer a few questions. We might do a deep dive little mini training. And then guess what? We all go on mute. We set a timer. We are big on timers, Pomodoro timer, setting a 25-minute timer. And we all work, including me. And Barbara, when you're there, you do it as well. And what are we doing during that time? It might be processing our email. It might be filing the things that have piled up in our to file tray throughout the week. It might be bringing in the mail and sorting the mail. Any of the things, it may be, doing your, Kathy Music, she's listening. She does a regular weekly review. She does a weekly review and has for the last 4 years without fail. And I'm actually interviewing her. Is that next week, Kathy? I think it's next on our next podcast. So stay tuned for that. And so she a lot of times does her weekly review during that period.
And the key to it is you're telling somebody else what you're doing, because we are so much more willing to be accountable to somebody else than we are ourselves. I mean, I wish it weren't true of myself, but it is. If I tell somebody else that I'm going to do it, then I don't want to be ashamed and say, oh, I didn't get around to it. So
that's right. So it's a lot of fun. And so we've, like Barbara said, we've been doing it, and it gets even more fun every single time. It's part of our program. But outside of our program, Barbara, you recently met someone whose entire business is this piece. You want to talk a little bit about that? And you've experienced it as well.
Yeah, it's just amazing. It's called Get Stuff Done Buddy. We'll put the information in it for you. And it's a program where you can get on at different times during the day, and there's a Zoom, and there's different kinds of activities that you can do. I write LinkedIn posts, and it's not my favorite thing to do, to be all honest, but I really need to do it. And so I'm not on all the time, but I jump on periodically. And the other day I jumped on, I only had 30 minutes in between appointments. I jumped on Get Stuff Done Buddy and they said, check in what you're doing. I said, I'm writing a LinkedIn post. And I got it done in 30 minutes. Now, I had already started it, so I was just finishing it up. But that's such an example of something called Parkinson's Law, which says work expands to fill the time available. And I've used the example for decades of meal planning. If you invite a friend to come over for dinner at 7:00, you will figure out how to get food on the table and clear the clutter from the house enough to have somebody come over. If you have all day Saturday, you can take all day Saturday, and the quality of the food and the house cleaning does not improve exponentially. It just doesn't. And so that LinkedIn post that I spent 30 minutes on, previously, it could have easily been a couple of hours, but because I was accountable to somebody else, and because I didn't want to get distracted. I have ADHD, like a lot of you. And even if you haven't been diagnosed with ADHD, we live in an ADHD world. And so it's so easy to get distracted. And if you're working on something you don't want to do, or that you're not particularly good at, then any extraction will do, or any distraction will do. Yeah, anything to keep me from doing it. But because I said to somebody, I'm finishing up my LinkedIn post, we had to check in at the end of the time. I said, got my LinkedIn post finished. So
I love it. I'm going to pull up the screen. I'm going to pull up the website here. And Ed's has the link up, getstuffdonebuddy.com. I just want to show you the page. It's really fascinating to me. Do you see it there, Barbara?
Yes.
Are you seeing it? Okay. So it always seems impossible until it's done. Nelson Mandela. So introducing Get Stuff Done Buddy, a virtual co-working community where collective focus meets unstoppable potential, which is just amazing. So here's how it works. You check the calendar. She has all, the owner, her name is Linda. She has different things already scheduled on the calendar. You join a session and you get stuff done. It's as simple as it gets.
Yeah.
Right.
It's really simple. I've just really appreciated it. And they have different sessions and different things that you can do. So I have, when I go to my calendar, her calendar is on it. So when I look at my today and things that I want to do, I can see what things I'm doing today that I would get done more productively if I were doing it with somebody else. So I joined that part of the day. So I didn't join it all yesterday because I was out with clients and I didn't need it. So it just depends, but it's really flexible. And I think it also, one of our other things that we talk about all the time is people say, what should I do? And we always say that's the wrong question. The question is, what will you do? And that's what Get Stuff Buddy does. It allows you to say what you will do, to give it to somebody else, and then holds them accountable. So it is the epitome of together we are better.
That's right. That's right. So if you guys go check that out, and if you have any questions, you can let Linda know that Barbara and Andrea sent you, and that you were listening to our Pep Talk podcast, and that we sent you over there. So check it out, and come back and tell us, did you like it? Did you do anything with it? So I haven't personally used it yet. I want to. And Barbara, you said you've just really enjoyed the time. And
I've used it numerous times, and I've gotten many things done from it. And it's definitely part of my toolkit. We say one of our others, half of any job is having the right tool. Get Stuff Buddy is definitely part of my toolkit at this point in time. So I think one of the things for our listeners to think about is, what is something, we always like to give you a next action. So a next action could be, what is something that you really need to get done, but you've been procrastinating about? And then how can you build accountability in? And we'll be happy to share ideas with you. If you want to send us a message or something and just say, here's we can jump on a quick call and give you some ideas.
That's right. And last but not least, get your productive environment score. Go to productiveenvironmentscore.com. Let's find out how productive your environment is now. And then you can join in with our community and connect and find out what we're up to and what opportunities you have to learn how to be more productive and get stuff done. Get stuff done, buddies. All right. That is all we have for you today. I think this was fun. We'd love your feedback. Feel free to comment on wherever you're watching this from. And please go over, if you're not watching us on YouTube, please pop over to our YouTube channel and like this video, share this video, and subscribe to our channel. It really helps us, and it helps us help other people, because the whole YouTube algorithms and all that. More people will.
Together we are better. That's
right. That's right. Together we are better. Help us out with the Together We Are Better piece. So thanks, guys, so much, and we will see you next time. Bye.